whether you have been able to hold individual police officers to account and go beyond that and hold the commanders to account, because that is within your mandate. Or do you just focus on those constables, those very junior police officers who are acting under instructions? Of course, you need to do that. But do you go beyond that and deal with and act on their commanders who have given the instructions? 2, and this is more specific, and I want to focus now on the recent demonstrations and attendant deaths and injuries from police actions. From your records, say since the beginning of this year up now, how many Kenyans have lost their lives from police bullets and or truncheons? And I want to tell you, very honest with you, at the last count, we had 73 lost lives. And now speaking as Azimio, you can dispute or confirm. But from your end, because you are financed by taxpayers to do exactly that, how many lives of Kenyans were lost from police brutality during the demonstrations? And how many cases have you documented of those who had injuries? Many of them are still in hospital as we speak. And if you really care, I could share with you privately outside this forum the details. It's a serious matter, I'm sure you know. Yes. I'm happy my friend Osano Mari is in agreement with that, with me on that here. Now, you have said that you are handicapped. You know, at one point I felt very sorry for you people. When the IG of police referred to you as busybodies. You see? The current one referred to you people as busybodies. Of course, you responded meekly. No. As people who have got no teeth. But even as you lament lack of prosecutorial powers, have you cared to understand that you can institute private prosecution? And you have got lawyers here in your midst. I can see veteran lawyer, this. Yes. Yeah, all lawyers, very eminent lawyers. And eminent thinkers like my friend Dr. Ogon. Okay? Why haven't you taken steps? Because desperate times call for desperate measures. Extraordinary times require that you adopt extraordinary measures. Because if you did that, and eventually the prosecution is stopped, which obviously would happen sometimes, then the public would have taken note. Yeah, how the kind of resolve you have. So I'm just trying to plead with you that even as you seek to be entrenched, to be empowered, to be strengthened, can you do what you need to do with the current powers that you have? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Co-Chairs. I think just picking up from where Honorable Ndai left, it came from you that indeed some of the officers have been partisan, particularly during elections. But even in the recent demonstrations, Maandamano, it was very, very clear that some of the officers are partisan. You could see officers saying, we have allowed these demonstrations to go on, we have banned those demonstrations, we will not allow those demonstrations. And Article 37 of our Constitution is very clear. That right, the freedom to demonstrate, the freedom to protest, to picket, is guaranteed by our Constitution. It does not depend on the generosity of Bwana Bungei in Nairobi or IG Kome. but you could see these officers actually purporting to allow or disallow. And some demonstrations were very violently handled. Some of us in this dialogue committee were victims. Some of us lost very close friends. Some of us lost our bodyguards, who are actually not just brutalized, injured, but some were shot and killed by police officers. And you could tell that that partisanship was very evident. They couldn't allow demonstrations here in Nairobi, but when we have issues of some money being stolen for students going to Finland, demonstrations were allowed in Eldoret. When there would be tea machines in Kericho being brought and the citizens came out to demonstrate, demonstrations were allowed. But in Kisumu, in certain parts of Western, in Nairobi, the violence, the brutality of the police was shocking. Now that you yourselves admit this partisanship, we want to hear from you. What have you done to address this issue? Because it's a growing menace to enjoyment of fundamental rights and freedoms in our Constitution, particularly Article 37. And it also goes against what you have yourselves told us in Article 244 that requires the highest standards of professionalism and discipline in our officers. Partisanship shows lack of professionalism. It also shows probably the lack of proper training, because you have said one of the issues there you look at is the training of our officers under Article 244D to the highest, in fact not high standards, the highest standards of competence, integrity, respect for human rights, and fundamental freedoms and dignity. So these are issues we would like you to address us on. But having witnessed firsthand the brutality and abuse of human rights by our police officers, I want to ask you if you are aware that we have about 1,000 police officers from Kenya who will be dispatched to Haiti, and there's an uproar internationally because of the recent abuse of human rights by our police. The world is worried that these police officers who abused human rights here in Kenya might export that police brutality, abuse of human rights in Haiti and on the international stage where they are now being sent. Are you aware that this decision has been made? Will IPOB be involved, or have you been prepared to extend that oversight to our officers who will be going to Haiti if they are going to export the same police brutality outside our borders, which will reflect very seriously on our image internationally? We want you to address us on that, because what we know or what we've heard about Haiti, they are not the stone throwing demonstrations that maybe you might have been told about. These are gangs that are heavily armed. These are gangs that have killed their own leaders. And we are sending our young people in uniform, in harm's way, to face these gangs. Many of them may not come back alive. Are you aware of this development? Will you be oversighting this? We would like you to address us on that. Lastly, You have said you received over 437 complaints. I think that was from the last elections. Would like to know how many have you concluded, which ones are still how many are still under investigations out of those 437. Would also like to know, in the post-election period, that is in the Maandamano period, how many complaints have you received? And in the face of the serious police brutality witnessed in this country, and I want to confirm what the Honorable Pio and I have said, because as principals of Azimio, we have been working with these families, we have buried their dead, we have visited hospitals, and we have witnessed firsthand that those 73 Kenyans, many of them were very young, between 18 and 25, the oldest was about 30. Post-mortem reports were availed to us, showing they were shot by the police, and the cause of death were gunshot wounds, many of them to the backs of their heads, many of them in their backs. We would like you to tell us whether you have received these complaints, whether you have visited some of these mortuaries in Kisumu and other parts of this country, in Nairobi, and whether you are aware of these killings by a special unit of our police. We would like you to confirm that, whether you are aware of a team of police in Subarus that are called Special Support Units, SSU, and whether you are also, as per your mandate, oversighting this killer squad of a special police unit. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, Eugene and I today decided we are the people who speak the longest, so we manage you as you manage me. Obilianga?
Thank you, Chair. I think I'll be rather brief compared to the previous speaker. I'm normally brief. I'll go straight onto the 2/3 gender rule and your input as IPOA. First of all, I want to appreciate that you have made your presentations very clearly on that. But again, underscore the fact that you are actually, the police force is really suffering from the 2/3 gender balance. Looking at the numbers you have mentioned, 10,000, 14,000 against the 200,000 or how many thousands of police. What have you done as a sector? Or what do you recommend in order to cover up this? I have seen during recruitments the bias that is there, especially on the girl child. It's like you allocate very few numbers for the girls, and yet they have equal opportunity in this country. Why hasn't it actually brought up a formula? Like we are trying to sit here and bring up a formula on how to cater for the 2/3 gender rule and let it also flow across the police, especially on the girl child. Secondly, you also mentioned on something on the professionalism, I think of the IPOA board or IPOA, whatever, generally. You said 3/4 of the composition is actually officers. Why haven't you not put up a recommendation on other professionals to be included?
National Police Service.
The National Police Service
Commission.
Service Commission to be included apart from just officers and maybe the few other professionals that you have. Why can't we have a scenario where you cut across all sections? We have the professionals like the lawyers, even teachers, stuff like that. And finally, I get back to the demonstrations. During the demonstrations, people's properties were destroyed, businesses were devastated, and the police did very little actually to protect these groups. I can't say it was only in Azimio regions. Everybody was affected across the board. Kenya Kwanza sections were affected. Azimio regions were affected. So generally, what did you do, or what do you recommend that can be done? Or have you done even anything about it in the first place? Thank you.
Amina.
Thank you, Chair. My first question will be on the statements that were made by the Inspector General, Koome. He denied about the police brutality during the protests. He even went ahead to assert that Azimio la Umoja is hiring dead bodies and trying to paint a bad picture to the government and towards the police force. So as IPOA, did you investigate into this matter? Did you find out whether these people were dead? Were they really hired? Or were they really killed? So what's your take on that? Question number 2, we have also noticed as Kenyans that there is the raiding and sometimes kidnapping of certain high-profile individuals in broad daylight. IPOA, do you have anything to say about that? Thank you.
And now to just make my comments. But one of the reasons I really want IPOA to work is, you remember I was a commissioner in KCHR. And I remember walking into the late Saitoti's office and asking him to ensure that there's a policing oversight authority. In fact, this bill, the draft came actually from the Commission on Human Rights. I used to do policing oversight within the security sector reforms program, and I realized the scale and magnitude. So my first question to you, Anne, 10 years on, what are the deficiencies? Because definitely there are deficiencies, particularly within the Act. The anchorage in law or in the Constitution is one. We try to find place for IPOA within Article 59 of the Constitution so that we can create, upload, because it says that through that you can create more than one commission. But I think we were not able to necessarily locate it within the Article 59 commissions. I do agree, but what else do you think needs to be done in terms of legal reforms of the IPOA Act to upscale it to that extent where it is effective? 2, the president came under the promise that there will be no extrajudicial killings, and I do still believe that that is the position. The justification would only be what is contained in the National Police Act on the use of force as measurable and directly proportional to the loss of the lives of others. So I do hope you will respond to some of those queries by Opio on the basis that responds to the realm of the rule of law. I do not think the Kenya Kwanza government is in any way in support of an errant police force, a rogue police, or a regime police. But the second last question, the whole idea of police reforms, and you're supposed to be the police auditor. You're like an audit firm for the police, not only in terms of its accountability, but in terms of tracking its reforms, unless that mandate is not assumed in that act. The whole idea about police reforms was to move us away from a regime police to a democratic policing service. In your assessment, I can see very eminent people here, lawyers, doctors, social scientists. What do you think, how much progress would you say we have made from the advent of the 2010 Constitution to move ourselves away from a regime police to a policing service? And in that event, what more is required in terms of legislative, structural, or policy reforms? And lastly, the whole idea of also these shifts, you know, there was the whole idea of police reforms or security sector reforms was premised on the fact that we needed to move away from the securitization of our democracy, you know, that paradigm, to the democratization of our security. We move away from the securitization of our democracy, kwamba kila kitu ni serikali, matter of national security. In fact, there was a Director General of the NIS who tried to insert a clause to limit the Bill of Rights to national security. We discovered it at some point. So at that time when we were voting the 2010 Constitution. So in other words, human rights is not limited in the purview solely of national security. There are limitations that are created by the Constitution itself. So we wanted to move ourselves to the democratization of our security. The democratization of our security means people should be engaged more engaged in participation of our security apparatus. So the question will be, do you think this police service is doing enough in terms of democratization of our security outside these conventional things of nyumba kumi sijui and vitu kama hizo, or DCs and DOs and chiefs and so whatnot? Is there been sufficient shift in terms of the paradigm? But finally to Opio and I think we will really expect an independent report from your team, and you can be very sure that there is no government that is not limited by the rule of law, and there's no government, the Kenya Kwanza government is not keen or is not intent on protecting where rogue police officers have been involved in taking the lives of others in a manner brutal. So therefore it should not be purported by their sentiments that there is any sanitization on our part. If you do your job, then I'm quite sure actions will be taken. But my last comment, I do not agree with giving you prosecutorial powers. There must be separation of powers. That's why we wanted the police to investigate, the DPP to prosecute. So you must continue to investigate, let another arm prosecute.
Quickly, please respond.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll try to respond to some. I may invite my colleagues to respond to the others. What has IPOA done within its mandate? Honorable Wandai, Chair, you raised this question, what has IPOA done within its mandate? Whether we've been able to hold police to account, and what have we done in terms of command responsibility? I would say that IPOA has done a lot. Probably one of our deficiencies is not going too much to the media. But in terms of accountability, we've done a lot. We've done many recommendations. We've completed record investigations within the time of our lifespan as the board that is continuing. And indeed, we find ourselves between a rock and a hard place. Here we are being told we haven't done enough. You talk to the police officers, they don't want to see us. They say we are the worst team that ever came into being. We've increased the number of files that are with the DPP. We found about 60 files in courts. We've moved that number to 170. We have over 380 files lying at the DPP. And in total, we've forwarded over 500 files to the DPP. So a lot has been done. We've engaged DPP to try and see how that process can move faster. And at one point during the former DPP, he established a human rights desk to help review those files. And there are 2 points to it. One could be those that we have recommended prosecution so that they make progress, and could be those that are pending and the officers need to be exonerated and the cases are still pending. So it cuts both ways. When these files are not attended quickly, there are those officers who are suffering, their files are still pending. And also there are those Kenyans whose files need to be prosecuted and the files are pending. It's work in progress. There are many reasons that are being given for this, including the fact that DPP, of course, receives files from many people, and those files are handled against the capacity that that office has. In terms of command responsibility, we've tried. We have Baby Pedo case, which was initially done public inquest, and the judiciary recommended prosecution of very many officers. It was brought back to DPP. We supported DPP in investigating that case, And our conclusion was that there must be command responsibility. Again, that file is still sitting with the DPP. But our recommendation is that there has to be an element of command responsibility in certain matters. Baby Pendo is a good case. There is a case we call Nambale that was withdrawn without further consultation to us, where we had made recommendation for command responsibility. Again, that office does not report to us in terms of oversight. So when cases are withdrawn, the law allows them to do that. There is nothing much we can do. But in terms of IPOA position, there are instances where there is need for command responsibility. In terms of the next question that the chairman asked was deaths and injuries arising out of the demonstrations, the report that we shall be submitting has that data. In summary, we received 237 complaints involving 359 complainants. That is the period.
You say the report you're submitting now or when?
No.
The report you shall be submitting has got that data.
Yes, the one that you have directed that we sent through the email.
Okay.
Has that data.
And is it for election or post-election period?
CEO will be speaking into that, but it's also available. That data is also available. In terms of demonstrations, we received 237 during this period between Sabasaba and the time there was ceasefire when this team was established. We received 237 complaints involving 359 complainants. Deaths that we received as IPOA are 57 that are under active investigation. Some of them are the tail deaths. Deaths that we have captured. Deaths, before.
Of death?
Yes. Within the period of demonstration.
That you confirmed?
That the reports that IPOA has. The data that we have on deaths is 57.
Not 73.
Not 73. And this is how they are classified. Kisumu 33, Nakuru 2,
slowly.
Nairobi 20.
Come again?
They are all under investigation, but Kisumu we had 33, Nakuru 2, Nairobi 20, Kakamega 2. Injuries were a number of them, and all that data is in this report that we shall be submitting to the committee. In terms of extrajudicial killings and the ability to institute private prosecution, I think Honorable Omar has already spoken into that. We've been seeking prosecutorial powers because you're a government entity, and you have had the position of the crafters of these documents. The position is that there should be separation of powers, and therefore as a government entity, unless this team gives us prosecutorial powers, the law ties us to make recommendations to the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution.
So are you saying the law is such that it constrains you from undertaking private prosecution?
Yes.
Explicitly?
We cannot do private because you're government. We are a government entity.
Under what law?
IPOA Act.
Yeah, I'm asking you, is it explicit in the Act that you can't undertake private prosecution? And if you juxtapose that with the provisions of Article 157, let's help us understand. Yeah.
Chair, IPOA can do private prosecutions. What we are saying is that when we do our investigations and need to give recommendations to the ODPP, we have to wait until the ODPP now either agrees with our recommendations or returns the file to us to ask us to add on the evidence that he thinks perhaps does not meet the threshold. And during that process, because sometimes we finish our investigations very quickly, most of the investigations are over. But as you have heard from the figures, the files that are pending before the ODPP are too many. And we continue doing our investigations and forwarding our recommendations there. That's why we were asking for prosecutorial powers.
So, Waiganjo?
Yes.
Some of those files can stay there forever?
Yes.
In theory?
Sometimes in theory, they will stay there forever. sometimes when they go to court, they'll be withdrawn without reference to the independent policing.
Can you do us a favor, Wigancho? Can you give us an analysis of the files that you have taken to the DPP,
certainly,
those that have been prosecuted and those that are still pending?
That will be done right away, Chair. We have our CEO here who is in charge of the Secretariat, and we will give out those figures. But on to the matter that was also brought forth on the extrajudicial killings, we would also want this committee to take extrajudicial killings in law now legislatively from Manda. Yeah, Manda extrajudicial killing. We want a demarcation in law because we talk about extrajudicial killings and there is also Manda. So we want a clarity in that, and that can only be found in law. And then on abductions, we want a clear reference between abduction and enforced disappearance, because the law is broad. We do not have a clear-cut law. When you say, because you cannot, sometimes there's an abduction and then you reappear. So you have disappeared, but you have appeared. So we are not clear on when are you abducted or when there is an enforced disappearance. The president also assured us that we would be carrying out an inquiry on enforced disappearance and extrajudicial killings. So we want that to come forth so that the citizens can come and give their stories, because the files are many. We've post-mortem reports. We have a challenge of witnesses coming to us, because also the witness protection program does not have sufficient budget to cover our witnesses. We have lost witnesses clearly when we have good cases. So those are some of the challenges we have, and I want to leave it now so that you can get the actual figures from our CEO.
Yes, Salake. You're the CEO, unless otherwise.
Thank you, Chair. I don't want to repeat what has already been spoken to, but probably just to clarify on the issue of the command responsibility, that as IPOA for the first time, innovatively together with the DPP, we've been able to take a case to court. Actually, the Bipendo case is a case in court where 12 senior police officers from county commanders are now in court. And that is by way of us taking the responsibility higher, beyond the constables on the ground. So this is a live matter which is currently in court, and we will be able to see the progression of that case in court. I don't know, Chair, you may wish to speak to the IT question. I'll leave that to the Chair. On the issue of extrajudicial killings, we have, of course, what has been explained by Honorable Waiganjo, but beyond that, as an authority, we have clarity on what we are doing. The cases we are able to investigate where it has been determined through investigations that we are able to identify the people responsible in those enforced disappearance or in extrajudicial killing have been taken through investigations. However, where we are not able to determine directly the police involvement, the commission or the authority has decided that it will undertake public inquiry, which will be able to, to determine exactly the circumstances and also determine accountability. So I think that is all I would want to clarify.
When you are still on the floor,
yes.
What about the other, you see, when you stretch your imagination in terms of the electoral injustices?
Yes.
There were complaints here by IBC.
Yes.
The officers were assaulted, murdered, etc., etc.
Yes.
There's been little police action. Can you please also look into why there's police inaction on complaints filed by IBC commissioners and the commission itself on part of the abductions, murder, assault, and other vestiges against the law? Secondly, I remember there are these men who are working in the KK Secretariat, the Indian nationals, who were actually abducted by the DCI and were killed in some container. They had a killing container somewhere. what is the extent of the fate of those men from the DCI?
Okay, maybe picking up on the last one about the Indians. I think this is a matter, again, which is, of course, in court. And between IPOA and the DCI, we were able to make a presentation. And I think I would rather ask the head of legal to speak to that matter with clarity.
Yes, thank you. As the CEO has stated, that the matter is currently in court. The matter is being handled by, of course, IPOA and also the Internal Affairs Unit of the National Police Service is dealing with that investigation, and the matter is currently in court.
On the issue of IBC, yes, there were the reports, of course, cases we are handling where IBC officers were assaulted, allegedly by police. A case we are handling is the case of the IBC officer in Wajir, and we have made a very advanced investigation on this, and these are matters which are basically towards conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. On the issue of partisan approach and the IG banning demonstrations, I'll allow the Vice Chair to speak into that. Then Commissioner Mudaura can speak into the issue of Haiti.
Let's try to now wind up. Yes, in the next 5 minutes.
Dr. Deputy Chair.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, chairs and honorable members. It's true. In our records and in our presentation, we mentioned that there is some partisan in the police, but generally I want to put it clearly that not all police are partisan. Of course, everybody is relating with the police in one way or the other. It is true. If you look at the statistics from IPOA, about 99% of the police are doing a good job, but 1% has some issues. And sometimes when one person becomes rogue or one person makes a statement, it's not a general statement for all the police. Of course, somebody may be in a command position many times, and where they go wrong, it is very clear with the IPOA statement today that we have no compromise at all. We may look like we are crying here and there, but statistically, if you look at this document later, you will realize that no police officer is above any action from IPOA. And we have summoned even people in very high ranks. So bipartisan, yes, because of course you can see some elements here and there. But generally, the police are doing a good job. Of the IG, of course, people have the right to say what they want to when they get the podium. And interestingly, chairs, we have asked the IG why he made that statement. And as he denied other statements he made before, he also denied that he did not make reference to IPOA during the busybody statement. However, he made it, and we are cautious. We are cautious about the engagement and what we need to do in official and formal way. On the question of hired bodies, that was strange. It was very strange. And members, individuals have ways of saying what they want to. IPOA, as given by these figures, is very clear. We go to witness in the crime scene area. We go and attend the post-mortem. Post-mortem reports are with us in all general reports. And I think that should not be a substantive issue to discuss for now. Thank you, Chair.
What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you say is strange? What do you mean exactly?
I mean, when he makes those statements,
yes,
those statements must be factual and supported by figures, right? But you know, a blanket statement
but
that is
if he's being professional.
Yeah.
That is if he's being professional.
Can Doreen please answer the last set of questions?
Just before she answers, just the issue of two-third general rule is something that we always talk about, something we have also raised with the National Committee in Parliament to ensure that in terms of recruitment, they increase the number of women, because they do in such a way that women are not, even in the entry level, they are not given equal opportunity. So that's something we have picked up, even at the top level. In fact, there used to be Madam Kaindi, and once she was removed, there was no more representation there. So it's something that we really want the parliamentarians to pick it up themselves and ensure that that thing happens, that we get top leadership of women. Thank you.
Okay, Doreen.
Thank you, sir. On that,
make it brief.
Absolutely. On just a quick one to add on to what Commissioner Fatma has said, and this is a question by Honorable Bilenga, that what have we done to ensure at least matters of female gender are considered in the service? We are involved. We conducted the first ever Women in Policing conference in the country, and we are pleased to inform you that it was very successful. And we are also supporting the establishment of Association of Female Police Officers in the service, so that they're able to advance their own concerns within the service, and associations as recognized under Section 87 of the NPSA. Now, on issue of Haiti, we have also learnt of the same from the media, and we have not been officially engaged on the same, but this is an appreciation that the Act, the NPSA, that is the National Police Service Act, provides for, or rather allows the Inspector General or the service generally to partner regionally and internationally with other services in matters of policing. Now, how the same is regulated, remember this is, once they leave the country, it's under international law. Remember, our scope is territorial. We are only able to deal with our officers while within our territorial space and when under the command of the Inspector General. That said, we are very concerned about the welfare of our officers as they engage or live for Haiti, and most importantly, training for them to be able to carry out their duties they are required to do while there. Now, one other issue on our act is that we can investigate officers during and even when they've left the service. So whatever the circumstances, we believe that if allowed under the various instruments that have been entered into, probably through mutual legal instrument by the Attorney General, the IG, and other entities that are involved, we hope that IPOA scope will be entrenched to allow us to deal with this matter when they are back into the territories. We are open to explore modalities of dealing with such, because this appears to be our first, and like KDF, where we've had this kind of processes, IPOA, in this instance, we are going to explore approaches on how to deal with the same. Sorry, sir, quick one on the issue of legislative intervention to allow the authority to proceed or carry out its duty. Truth is, if we don't have oversight, then in the service, NPS, or even those other services, we have seen what has happened, for example, in Marsabit, in Wajir, with the KWS and so on. We request that entrench oversight for all those entities. The police feel targeted whenever they're involved even in a multi-agency approach or exercise of policing nature. It's only the police that are investigated. The other agencies are dealt with internally and mostly not in a very open manner. We request that we have existed from 2011 to date without regulations. Therefore, we're requesting that the regulations that are currently before the House table, before the Committee on Delegated Legislation, please be fast-tracked to enable us have a legal framework that is self-executing. Well, the other issue, sir, is about compliance of the Act as it exists. That's a big challenge for us, and it's legislative in nature. We don't know to what extent we are supposed to be suing the various commanders to notify us of deaths that occur within or during police operation. This is an area we would want clarity on what IPOA ought to do or what action need to be taken by commanders who do not notify the authority within the 24-hour rule. then of course give us teeth to bite. I know Honorable Hassan has indicated that we shouldn't be given prosecutorial power. Truth be told is that the more people review the files, the more the delay and justice is actually, both for the police officer and for the people of Kenya, is delayed and therefore not served as it ought to be. Other challenges, sir, is that we are a young entity rather, with a number of staff that is currently 260. And we have an approved establishment of nearly 3,000. We are requesting for funding to allow us to be able to spread ourselves throughout the Republic and most importantly, serve in all Huduma centers. It is almost impossible to even explain to people what we do since we are not visible. We are requesting for funding to allow us for a planned expansion and so on. And we also request that through this dialogue, this National Dialogue Committee, kindly uptake of our recommendations. All these matters, we have 26 reports submitted to the NPS, submitted to the Cabinet Secretary and Parliament, both houses, and we request, including to all the 47 county assemblies, we are required by law to submit the reports. But uptake of our recommendations is a big challenge, and we don't know how many or how much should we seek court intervention to ensure enforcement. From the oversight point of view and legislative point of view, Parliament help us deal with this matter. Thank you, sir.
Mwesh, make it very brief because Mwesh, make it very brief. I like this subject is important for this committee, but make it very brief.
Thank you very much, Chair. Indeed, I want to say that let the committee not be worried that the IG, the Inspector General of Police, would make that kind of a statement and get away with it. I think it's important for the committee to know that we do have pending complaints against the IG himself. But I want the good doctor here to make a conclusion so that on the issue, on the same issue of hired bodies.
Dr.
Thank you. Chairman, I want to say that when the IG makes a statement that bodies have been bought and transferred, we as IPOA, we just counter it with facts. And the fact of the matter is, I want to tell you from the forensic angle, a policeman who does not want to kill does not shoot above the waist. You shoot below the waist to immobilize. When we get pathology reports and we are capable of telling whether this was long range, short range shooting by the entry and exit of the bullet, or if the bullet is lodged within. And therefore, the reports that we have got those facts. The challenge sometimes, and I want to bring it out very carefully, is when we want forensic analysis of the weapon that was used. Then we sometimes encounter bottlenecks because this laboratory is under the control of the DCI. The DCI, to me, and I want you legislators, is part of the NPS. He is under the command of the IG, and he cannot be independent. He denies or they alter the evidence because they have to give us the report of the weapon used. They say, as per our analysis, these weapons were not in the possession of the police as at the time of the action. That is one thing we encounter. Secondly, I want to say, do our police suffer from frustration? Are they in the wrong profession? Or because of the amount of misplaced aggression that we see? I want to say that the police commanders have told us that when they go for recruitment, some of the people they recruit to Kiganjo College is forced on them by powers from elsewhere. And they are wondering whether the product they are training for 9 months in Kiganjo are actually coming out to be policemen and women, or people whose relatives and friends bought their way into the police training. I want to say this because we have seen incidents where police with their batons, and the case of the two brothers in Luanda, whom you buried, the post-mortem was explicit, saying they actually died of rungus, not even a gun. Why would a professional police officer continue to inflict injury to somebody whom they have already subdued, instead of either arresting the person and putting in the lorry and go and process the crime? Is it frustration inwardly? Is it because they think that they lord it over the population of the populace? We have got those issues. So I want to answer that statement of the IG that we will counter it with the facts. The only thing is that he may use his professional influence to deny us the ballistic and forensic reports from the forensic lab. And we must say that we have made a proposal that this forensic laboratory should be given autonomy away from the DCI. That's a proposal we have made, so that it does its job not only for the police. There are very many other organizations that would want to use that laboratory, including even the national government chemist, including the national public health laboratories. There are certain things that they will need to have analyzed there. We have got other institutions that would use that lab. So domiciling it strictly under the IG also hampers our work, because the DCI are part and parcel of the police. But we get the facts from that.
Thank you, Dr. Final word. I think I'll let the chair have the final word. Please, just no, Eugene, just let the chair.
No, there's a question they have not answered.
Yeah, just let the chair have a final word, and
yes,
then if it is unanswered, we will ask again.
Chair, while you're concluding,
can you please, Eugene, let the chair just say something?
Yes, as she concludes, there's one question you have not answered about the abuse of human rights and the special support unit embedded in the police that has been responsible for some of these atrocious
You've asked the question. Let her answer, please.
Can you respond to that?
Chairman, could I seek for your indulgence to allow a question you raised on democratization of policing to be answered by Commissioner Torrey very shortly, please? Because that came from the chair.
Okay.
1 minute, please.
Yeah, 1 minute.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. You did raise the issue of securitization of security to democratization of security. I hope I understood your explanation on what you meant, and I would like to say that under our mandate of inspection of police premises, we do look out for human rights abuses and compliance, and we make our recommendations to the IG on what needs to be done, but also work with the officer in charge of the station to see what they can improve on. Currently, as a result of our recommendation, we have CPUs, that is child protection units, being built in a number of police stations. Also, from our monitoring mandate on police operations, we also monitor standards, human rights standards that are supposed to be maintained, and thereafter we make our recommendations. Also, on the issue of democratization, while carrying out our inspections, Chair, we also look out to see whether police stations have actually set up or established community policing committees. And what we have found is that a number of police stations have not come up with community policing committees, which involves membership of members of the public. So we want to pray that perhaps that's something you can pick up. We have made our recommendations to the IG to ensure that each police station and OCS complies with that requirement. Finally, there is also the requirement in law for establishments of county policing authorities. With county policing authorities, Mr. Chairman, this is supposed to be established by governors. And these, again, very, very few governors have established this.
And the challenge here is that the county commissioners are supposed to be members of these county policing authorities. And there's a bit of conflict because the county commissioners have the county security committees. And so they feel uncomfortable to sit under a committee that is chaired by the governor on policing and security matters. So that's something you may need to look at. On tracking of police reforms, Chairman, we are currently working on all the recommendations that we have made to the IG and tracking and seeing which ones have been implemented, which ones have not been implemented, and we will share the report with yourselves. Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you very much, Chairman. As we conclude, I want to thank this committee for giving us an opportunity. In terms of special police units, for us, any injury or death arising out of police action, whether special or non-special, we treat it the same. It's an injury or death arising out of police action. And therefore, they are all held accountable, irrespective of the units. However, at the risk of repeating something that has been said here repeatedly, it's important that the bill that has been brought by Senate, has been published by Senate, Security Services Amendment Bill 2023, be supported to expand the mandate of IPOA, because we find when there is multi-agency operations, then IPOA is limited. We follow the issues, then we find probably something was committed by somebody who is not necessarily a police officer in the way we know it under NPS, and therefore our ability then to that extent gets challenged. So for us to be very effective, it's important that IPOA be entrenched in the Constitution as a Chapter 15 commission, and its mandate spread over uniformed services in regards to civilian engagement with all uniformed services, of course, except the defense, so that they can be held to account. Because you'll find that the multi-agency approach has all kinds of uniformed services.
Well, when once any security service, including the armed forces, is called in aid of civilian authority, then civilian law applies.
Yeah,
so they must be held accountable.
When they are under the operation of the IG. When they are under the operation of the IG, then they come under civilian oversight.
Yeah.
Maybe just one last one in relation to what she was trying to answer. I wanted to chip in, but you came in handy. Some time back, His Excellency instituted the Maraga Task Force on police reforms. Do you have any report, or have you received anything on that since it was instituted? Thank you.
She sits in that task force.
Thank you, Mheshimiwa. His Excellency the President did appoint me as a member of the task force headed by Honorable CJ, and we are still on course and shall be giving our report. What we have discussed here is what we have as IPOA. In fact, in detail, the report will shed light on matters that affect police, NYS, and prisons, and prison service. And in addition to that, it will go into equipping, training, all these issues that have been asked by Mheshimiwa Eugene on SSU, or rather special police units and so on. So it's a very detailed report. I'm not under any right to share any view on that.
So Doreen, first and foremost, I want to thank you for one thing that you said about the mission to Haiti, about training and welfare. Absolutely. And I associate myself with the views of Dr. Ludumpoe, that 99% of our police officers is actually okay. Yes. Because we don't want to create an impression when this mission is in Haiti by some of the sentiments here that those Kenyan men and women have gone there to carry out abuses and put our sons and daughters in harm's way. I think they will carry out themselves with the highest international standards and training.
I believe so.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Thank you for the opportunity. We can see the leader of majority has just walked in. This is the team from IPOA. My name is Anne Makori, the chairperson. We've had engagements with the team, some of them very hot, but we believe we are equal to the task. We shall be submitting as directed by the chair, joint chair, a written report that comprises of what you said and other details that we think would help this committee arrive at an appropriate decision. Thank you once again for the opportunity.
Thank you too, IPOA. Weganja was pleasantly surprised to see you, a policing expert. But I really appreciate, we gave the length of time we did for this particular IPOA engagement because of the extent of which it is relevant to this committee. And I really thank you. You actually realized we did not, Article 43 and everything else, we really wanted this information from you. And we are grateful for your honesty and openness. And we hope we can get the report. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next group. Okay, I think we are set. Are we? So welcome. This is Mandoya Nawake. We have got maximum 20 minutes in this session. I'm sure members here are known to you, but we can save time. Is it? Yes. Then proceed and introduce yourselves and make the presentation.
Start our way, which is to say a prayer, a Muslim prayer and a Christian prayer. Mama Fatima, say a prayer, a brief one.
Let's say a prayer. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين.
Tuombe. Mungu Baba Mwenyezi, tunakuja mbele yako Baba wetu, tunakushukuru, tunakuinua na kukutukuza. Asante kwa siku hii muhimu. Tunakuomba tunapoanza, tuanze na wewe, hadi tutakapotamatisha uwe pamoja na sisi, kwa njia ya Kristo aliye Bwana na mkombozi wetu. Amen. So that I'm sure has not taken 2 minutes. You gave us 20, we can still work with 18 or 15. So I am here with some of the national team, and in Maendeleo we work